Hi guys, Being You Tarot here, and I've decided to make a little bit different video than I normally would. Um, this actually has nothing to do with tarot, but it's something that has piqued my interest. So, tarot goes hand in hand with astrology, right? And I would not in any world, any way say that I am an astrologer. I like to look stuff up. I've read my birth chart, I've read my family's charts, friends, boyfriends, right? But I wouldn't say that I'm well versed when it comes to birth charts. However, I do understand the gist of it. Um, I also have a background in psychology, so psych really intrigues me. So, as you know, this case with the Idaho 4 murders has really taken this country by storm. Um, and I have a tendency to get like fully immersed in topics like this and I want to know all the information because I pick up stuff intuitively because I'm an intuitive tarot reader, but just also very intuitive person. So I want to know more, but I always want to know more about the person's psychology. And I truly believe that astrology can be very indicative of a person's makeup and how they go about the world. Now, that's not to say that just because your chart says something that it's definitely going to happen. We have free will, right? But it's interesting because in the topic of psychology, we often talk about nature versus nurture, right? So you're born with a certain set of genetics and genetic predispositions, even to your personality. What makes that up? Well, I wouldn't say a psychologist would necessarily say your birth chart, right? But when you read birth charts and you kind of analyze how they do often relate to a person, there has to be something to it, right? It is a science, I believe. So, anyways, I wanted to dive into Bryan Kohberger's birth chart. And the reason being is both just full intrigue, and I wanted to see if there was a potential motive, right? Because that's what they're doing right now. So we're obviously not privy to much information, but was there a psychological predisposition? Was this person a certain way? Did they act a certain way? Could we have seen this coming, right? You always want to know that. And please understand, I'm making this disclaimer now. This is all speculative. This is all information I pulled off the internet. I'm not an astrologer. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a criminologist. I'm just merely a tarot reader who is extremely interested in this topic. And so if you're interested, please continue on. I think it's incredibly fascinating, the information that I found, and I hope you enjoy it. So one of the first things that I did was pull Bryan's birth date and location off of the internet and confirmed it. So I do not have his time of birth, and your time of birth is what's going to populate how your houses fall, and that's where the planets are in the various 12 houses in your chart. So I do not have house placements. I only have planetary aspects, right? So based on that, the information I pulled, I use a site called cafeastrology.com. And I put that information in, and it spits out a birth chart and then also an analysis. So again, I'm not doing the analysis. This is all information that I've pulled off the internet. And then I also used an app called The Pattern, which, if you're not familiar with it, I am not in any way associated with it, but it's an incredibly interesting, almost in a spooky way, app that kind of tells you about you, right, and your patterns in life. It's based off the time of birth. It's based off of your birth date. I assume that there is a lot of astrology in there. I don't know what else they have in there because they know some crazy stuff. So um, download the pattern if you're interested. But I did go look on that because what's really interesting about the pattern app is that you can go back in time. And so you can look up certain dates in your own life, like 10 years ago, and look at the pattern that you were going through. And it will say, you're going through XYZ. And sometimes it's really specific. Like it can say that you're having a difficulty with a romantic relationship right now. And maybe that's when you were having a difficult time with a romantic relationship. It's really quite interesting. So I did look that up. Again, I wasn't able to get a ton of information because I don't have his time of birth. I did try to find it, but there is a certain part of me, because I am so intuitive, that I have vacillated even just making this video because it makes me nervous. I don't want to be that connected to this because it is, he's a very, from what I can tell just from his chart, he's got some stuff going on, right? So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and just go over some of his chart. I will try and display some of it as well back here at various points throughout the video, but this might be a multi-part video as well. We'll see. But again, I want to go back as we start to the notion of nature versus nurture. So when I go over these first kind of personality types, I want you to kind of picture somebody and how, if they were to have this personality type, how it could go left or right, right? And by what I mean by that is that with this type of personality and, let's say, trauma or pressure, societal pressures, or as we've read in the news, that he was bullied in school. When you put pressure on that, somebody that has some of these predispositions, you have a higher chance of having them act out, right? So one of the other reasons that I think that it's important to look at astrology and sort of what we're made of and where we come from when it comes to this is there a potential to use this in the future? If you pull someone's chart, can you get information regarding how they're going to act, right, later on in life? Like, could this be a way to protect ourselves? I don't know. This is just something that I'm like thinking up in my made-up world, right? Called my head. So one of the first things that really stood out to me is his Saturn placement. And Saturn represents both contraction and effort. His Saturn is in Pisces. And one of the first things that it says is this person is misanthropic with a sullen humor. He likes to live in solitude, in contemplation, and preferring to work alone. So that really stood out to me because I know there was speculation on whether or not he acted alone, right, in this. This placement also oftentimes makes somebody very suspicious of other people, makes them suspicious of their intentions, whether it's their intentions because of religion or faith. They also may suspect that others' innocence or compassion is insincere. This person will then think that, like, oh, if somebody's being nice to me, it's because they have ulterior motives, right? So we're already formulating somebody who is on this sort of mentality of being hypersensitive, right? Hyper aware, hyper scrupulous when it comes to others. I have a ton of notes. The next placement that I wanted to point out was the so his sun sign is in Scorpio, and Scorpios never give up. And if you think about it, they were saying that these murders took place over, I want to say 15 minutes, but that is a very intense 15 minutes. And the amount of time that he took to prepare for this crime, he had enough time to talk himself out of it. But it's once a Scorpio, a Sun Scorpio, sets off to do something, they are relentless. Believe me. I know this firsthand, not because I am one, but because I knew one very close. When they want something, they have, without a doubt, they will get what they want. They never give up. They have tremendous staying power. They are not in the slightest intimidated by anybody or anything. Confrontations are not a problem. In fact, talk to any Scorpio about their lives, and you'll probably be in awe of all that they've gone through. But when you hear that, you're starting to also formulate sort of a narcissistic personality type, not actual NPD, but a personality that has narcissistic tendencies to it. The next thing that sort of stood out to me a lot was his sun sign. So his sun in Scorpio is square Mars. And that's a transit that's a placement that causes him to possess an unmistakable competitiveness and a very me first attitude. He's got a fighter persona, and this is most apparent in youth. When he's a child, he may have been described as sort of a bundle of energy. Someone may have probably remarked when he was a child that he may have not been able to sit still. One of the things that this person points out is that even though there is this competitiveness, right, you will still meet up with more than your share of conflict, and you can sometimes rub people the wrong way. You're very motivated to get things done, to take action rather than simply talk about something, and to get from point A to point B as quickly as possible. Those who know you quite well might describe you as hot-headed and temperamental at times. You're easily frustrated and give in to impulsive actions. Wow. There were several people that knew him from their past, in his past, that described him as hot-headed. That shocked me. I mean, this is in his chart. I don't know very many people who would pull this up. I'm sure there are, right? But this person literally described him as his chart is regurgitated. He also this aspect is also found in cardinal signs. So it gives a very impulsive energy. And he may be extremely short-tempered. If this aspect is found in fixed signs, he may be very hard-headed and willful. And if it's mutable, he may be restless and frustrated. It says that he probably had faced a lot of conflict and not particularly afraid of it. It also said that you have faced having your need to assert yourself blocked. Your parents may have done as much as they could to tame you, and what they felt to be excess energy or aggression. In other words, you know all about conflict and blockages. So if you know about conflict and blockages, you know how to try and force your way through them, right? And so if you see a blockage when it comes to other people and what you want, you're going to force yourself right through them. And forcing yourself right through them can mean unaliving somebody, right? Because they're not giving what you want. Where his other sun placement, there's another sun placement that says conjunction between Sun and Jupiter, right? And this is still his talking about his sun sign, right? It talks about him being good-hearted and possessing strong morals and much faith in life and people, right? So this could have been how he was in the beginning. But you don't have a lot of patience with those who break rules. So if you think about it, when he was bullied in school, right? if you've got all these other things going on, and as you see, the more that I read, right, and the more that I share with you, you will see that this person has the makings of somebody who cannot handle conflict, right? So if you're a rule follower and you are someone who very much wants people to do right by you, by everyone, but you also have this other side that can't handle conflict and that wants to get what you want, that creates quite a bit of instances where you might take matters into your own hands. The next part that I will share, this is about his sun as well. So this is all Scorpio, but his conjunction between Sun and Pluto. So this is starting to get into information that supports that speculation about him potentially being an incel. So you may have sexual vitality and passion. It's easy and natural for you to find passion and pursue it and to focus on a goal. You are not scared of anything. You enjoy and embrace growth, especially of the psychological kind. So he really is interested in how the mind works. You look for symbols and read between the lines in almost any situation. That can be something that is a detriment, because oftentimes those type of people that are trying to read between the lines, they will read between the lines to supply their own benefit. You're not afraid to get your hands dirty, and you are usually quick to help others, not only with mundane tasks, but also with psychological tasks. You are also not afraid of the dark side. You will bend rules from time to time if you feel the need to do so. You take particular pleasure in growth and life's lessons. You are not fond of superficiality and are generally the first to spot pretense of any kind. So he may have seen these beautiful people, these kind people, as somebody that's superficial because of the jealousy that he had, because he has the tendency towards that. He is very much has this aspect, promotes people that are perfectionists, demanding so much from themselves and a lot from others as well. He also has an opposition between his sun placement and Lilith. This is a very self-destructive side to him and should be managed by confronting whatever it is that's causing that destruction. You might often worry about friends betraying you, and you will constantly think that if they are, you need to do something about it. The next aspect that I will discuss just before we end this video is his moon. So his moon is in Cancer, and he has Cancer natives tend to whip a dead horse. They may dwell on hurts long after everyone else has moved on. When they feel they have taken for granted, which may be often, they don't always confront others directly. This is when they usually use roundabout ways to get your attention. In fact, these natives, when they are insecure, can become quite manipulative. They can also be victims of habit. These people have a hard time compartmentalizing their lives, simply because their watery moon tends to know no boundaries. Sometimes as a result, they may act irrationally. Some of the potential issues with this is he's subject to indolence, inertia. He's impressionable and extremely sensitive. It also has these people have a tendency to have a lot of family problems. He also, let's see here. His Mercury represents communication, and this is Cartesian and logical spirit as well. So his Mercury is sextile between Mercury and Neptune. He can his Mercury is in Scorpio. So Scorpio is sextile between Mercury and Neptune. Did I make sense? I hope I said that right. He can put down in writing everything that his imagination and intuition dictates. He's an extremely wonderful storyteller. And the reason why I'm sharing that is because there were some posts on Reddit early on where he very much described the scene in the murder as speculation. He can be very provocative in speech or communication, often channeling and contradicting, seeing the flaws of a situation. This might be someone who holds back his sensuality. We have the makings of someone who's potentially an incel. His Venus is in Scorpio. He's got a ton of Scorpio placements, okay? This causes him to run hot and cold. He's full of ardor and desire where the partner needs to be able to match his level. He can be jealous and extremely possessive. If disappointed or deceived in love, he can become bitter. He's usually very loyal. On the flip side, someone who's that loyal can be, and that possessive, can then think that they have a relationship with somebody when they don't, especially if that person has experienced trauma in the past, because that can set the tone for having these ideas of grandeur that maybe they're potentially in a relationship with someone that they're not. You can be nice to somebody that's in this mentality and they can all of a sudden start to think that you are in a relationship with them, even though you're not. But because they desire it, because they have this need to be looked at as somebody who is interesting, somebody who is sexually appealing, they will take this sort of feeling and idea that they have someone that's interested in that way. His Mars is in Leo, and Mars represents your desire for action and physical energy. This position, Mars gives a drive for significance. He needs to feel noticed. He needs to feel important. He needs to create something in some way, and they are determined that their lives have not only meaning, but significant meaning. So here again, we have a very much a points that support somebody that has personality type towards narcissism. This is a strong will that gives these people a lot of staying power. And though Mars and Leo people enjoy pleasures of risk-taking, this person often lives life with a true calling as well. So as you saw that he very much took this idea of wanting to be in the criminology background. His Mars is square between his his Mars in Leo is square between Mars and Jupiter. He often refused to accept any guidance. He can sometimes lack forethought, acting impulsively and sometimes imprudently, which causes problem. He wants everything yesterday and might use whatever means necessary to achieve his objectives, even questionable. His emotional life can be fraught with quarrels and or conflicts due to quick, passionate reactions. He can be very enthusiastic and hopeful. So this is square between Mars and Pluto. You have a tendency to impose your will upon others. This is where we're getting to the meat of it, which can cause severe problems for yourself when they react in self-defense. You have hair trigger temper and may even resort to verbal or physical abuse. You have a hair trigger temper and may even resort to, verbal or physical abuse. Learning to react to unpleasant circumstances with your intellect rather than your emotions comes with maturity. It's all too easy for you to find something negative about a situation, avoiding issues, ultimatums when you meet an obstacle. Instead, find a way to convince others to work with you on their own free will, because you don't want to let somebody have their own free will. Ordinary life seems drab and uninteresting to you, and you must have something that stirs your imagination. Some vision or ideal or dream to motivate you. You have a strong urge to act out your fantasies or to live your dream, and you will do things that others only talk and dream about. That's kind of shifting this into this positive light, but you can also understand how somebody with that mentality who has gone through trauma, nature versus nurture, can shift that into something extremely negative. This aspect gives you a somewhat scorpionic attitude towards your lovers, and it can modify these traits associated with the sign of your Mars considerably. In other words, there is a distinct possessive and demanding streak in your sexual nature. You approach to love, sex can be quite intense at times. Your sexual desire nature is a very strong one, and you may even use sex as bargaining chip in your relationships to achieve your goals. More likely, however, it's very focused and intense in sexual nature. This can also add a very magnetic quality and appeal to you. For you, it can be all or nothing. When you are finished with something, you leave it behind you, and there is no going back. You want a deep, soulful attachment on a sexual level. You fear betrayal and abandonment, and this can skew your perception of your lover. You may have a highly developed sex drive, but you may need to learn to rein in your aggressiveness in this area. Power struggles and control issues may surface often in your relationship. You perceive the cruel edge in people and understand its source. Self-confidence develops out of self-control in your interactions with others. Love affairs are tempestuous with quarrels, crises, and great passion after the storm. I can tell you I've probably read 50 charts in my life. Never once have I seen a chart like this. Never once. I would be happy to go into more information if you would like a part 2, but I just felt like this was such interesting information. I don't even know if anyone will ever see this video, but if you would like more, let me know. I would love for you guys to subscribe to my channel. I will be posting more readings on here. I'll be posting more information like this. Very much that kind of channel that I'd like to turn it into. I hope you guys have a blessed day and stay safe.